Okay. Welcome to the Zoom call, Homeschool 101, we've just called it. So supporting you on your journey or starting your journey with homeschool, potentially. This is a discovery Q&A. So the first question, and I've put over to one of our seasoned homeschool mums, Amanda, and she'll weave in, all the homeschool mums will weave in what experience that they have as we go. I've asked Amanda, so from a Queensland perspective, when you think or have a catalyst to potentially move from school, what is the first step before even registration? What's the step before? Where do I register? How do I make this stuff legal and do it at home? So over to you, Amanda. Thank you.
So the very first step is actually more than Queensland. So this is Australia-wide. Your very first step is just to know that it is actually legal to homeschool your children in all states in Australia. You can do this. You can decide to do it at the drop of a hat and start tomorrow. So you don't need to be stressing that you have to have all your eggs in the right basket and everything, all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. You can just wake up tomorrow morning and say, okay, I'm not prepared to put up with that. My kids aren't going to school today. And that's it. It's as simple as that. You can do that. All you need to do, if you've decided to do that, is just don't send them that day. They'll get marked as absent. The world will not end. Okay. What you can do is email the school then after you've done that day and you've had your cup of coffee and your kids are still in their pajamas at 2 o'clock, because that's what happens when you homeschool. You email the school and you say, okay, we've decided we're not coming back anymore. We're going to register for homeschooling. I understand this is going to take me a few days. I'd like you to be patient with me while I sort out the paperwork that's involved, but I'm just giving you a heads up, we're not coming back. That can be your very first email. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. It can actually be less. You can email the school with a very short, we're not coming back anymore, we're homeschooling now. And they will either accept that willingly, or they will email you back with this very official looking letter that makes it sound like you're going to have docs on your door tomorrow. Different schools react differently. The reality of the situation is it is a legal right for you to homeschool your kids, and you can tell the school you're not coming back and you can just not go. And then you've got a couple of weeks to sort out your paperwork. You don't have to sort out your paperwork and then remove your children. They're just going to be marked absent in the meantime. It's not a big deal. If your child is suffering from anxiety or you're suffering from anxiety, you can actually pop down to the doctors and get yourself a doctor's certificate, and you can get the school off your back that way. So if you need that to give yourself space and time, then do that. That's what the doctors are for. That's what doctor's certificates are for. So if you need that one to give yourself more time to organise your paperwork and get yourself sorted, or even just to get your head straight, then by all means use that pathway. It's available to anyone at any time. So be very, just be polite is the best way to do it. If you're really rude to the school on your exit, then they're very likely to just make your life difficult and send you, they'll ring you every day and say, why isn't your kid at school? You can actually send them a letter back to say that you consider that harassment if they are harassing you. It's very rare though. Most people who pull their children out of school to homeschool get a, oh, fabulous, we can't wait to hear how it went. Please check in with us in 6 months' time and you're welcome back anytime. That's what the majority of people get. It's just every now and then we'll find a school that really wants to keep you there for whatever reason, and you may have to be a little bit more forceful with your rights with them. Then you would look into your paperwork, but you don't have to look at the paperwork before you decide you're going to homeschool. So in terms of paperwork, we usually, I'd probably redirect you to Beverly Payne's Educating Parent group, which someone will link to, no doubt. And that would be the best place for you to start to see what your step one is. In Queensland, it's a pretty simple process. I know it's a pretty simple process in most states actually, but it does differ state to state. And so I don't think we're going to be able to give you state-by-state examples here, but I know there's a few Queenslanders on this one. So the first thing we have to do in Queensland is actually send in some paperwork. We have to write a plan for 12 months and we send that paperwork in. There's heaps and heaps of advice in how to do that stuff online in the homeschool groups. So, but I think the key thing, step one, is don't stress. It's okay. This is legal. You can do it. And you can take your time doing it. You don't have to have it all done by tomorrow. So I think that's the first thing. Do you want me to do more details on Queensland registration, Heidi?
Just a space for the moment. That was really good and very clear. I've heard, and I'm not sure, I'm really glad that you started Australia-wide, that's the case. I saw Lucy and Cara nod there a little bit too. Can either Lucy or Cara, and maybe again Amanda, what if there may be more pressure? I have heard more pressure put on to leave to keep your child there if they are on special needs. So there's two parts to that question. What we're getting is, how do I homeschool a child with special needs? And what if my school is getting funding because my child is on special needs? Will they give me more pressure? Will they put more pressure on me? And how do I handle that transition to make sure I've got my child's file, everything they've got on that, on that case, and that there's no more funding to that school, so it leaves me open to if I need support later on as well. So yeah.
I'll have a jump in. Hi everyone, Louise Austin here from That Homeschool Life. Look, we were in a position where our son was actually he was being told that he could get funding, and he hadn't started kindy yet, or prep, that kind of transition from preschool. But we had already been told that there was going to be some of his funding allocated to him. And so we sort of had that pressure on from the school. And I actually even had one of the school teachers come to me, one of the aides come to me and say, look, I'm going to lose my job if you take him away. And so there was a real sense of, guilt, I guess, too, that I felt like, oh man, I don't want to hurt this community that has been really great. Our daughter had already been in school for 2 years, and we'd really loved that community. So, there is a real sense sometimes of this onus that's on you, and it's a little bit of a burden. But you know what? At the end of the day, you've got to do what's right for your child. And for me and for our family, we're heading into our 14th year of homeschooling now. For our son, it was the best thing we ever did for him. And had I not done that, had I just, I guess, stuck around and gone, oh, well, I've got to keep that person in a job, like, I don't know where he'd be right now. He's entering into an apprenticeship, and he's done 18 months in a traineeship, and he's so happy. And he was like, he still is incredibly, he has a lot of challenges, and he's medicated still, and he has a lot of things going on for him. But as almost an adult, he's 18 next month, and he's able to advocate for himself really well. And so in terms of special needs, can you do it? Are you going to cop a lot of flack? Absolutely. I've got 3 autistic kids out of my 5. We've got ODD, ADHD, passive ADD, inattentive, we've got the dyslexia, we've got anxiety, you name it, it's here. And yet we all cope really, really well. We've learned how to cope, and not just to, survive this life. We thrive in our life, and we thrive because of this life that we've actually been able to carve out outside of the school system. And I'm not anti-school. If it's right for your child, you do that for your child. You do that for one of your children or all of your children, whatever you need to do. But for my children, it was not right for any of them to be there. So we got all of those accusations of, you're going to be holding back your kids. They need the social interaction, especially if they're autistic. They're going to need that social interaction. Man, I'm not locking them in a cupboard. This is the thing, right? Our kids are also with us all the time. Every appointment we go to, they're interacting with staff. They're waiting patiently. They're learning how to regulate. There are just so many positives about having special needs kids, for want of a better word, neurodivergent kids. There is a great gift that you can give them in practicing real life, in understanding themselves and their community from the earliest of times under your guidance and care. So if you get those comments, and please know that you probably will. I mean, we have very supportive family and friends, and we really copped it. Over time, I can guarantee you, from my experience anyway, people see the fruit in your children. They see the fruit of your labour. They see the growth in your children and the development of even what your kids are learning, and they marvel at that. And the people that are the naysayers often turn around to be the ones who are the advocates. So, happy to answer any more specific questions, Heidi.
Thank you, Lucy. That was a great contribution. Thank you. So, we've heard from Amanda saying don't stress. Lucy, almost the message there is keep going. So hopefully we can weave in there too. So tips to keep going and tips to not stress. If you're not stressing, what are you doing? That's where I can come in as well and help you work out what's that look like for you. What's the opposite way? If you're not stressing, what are you doing? And so that's where I can come into, but we'll weave in some of those questions because there will be tricky times. And that's okay, because know that I say it's a little bit like having the child in the first place. However your child even came to this planet, it's natural. And so is homeschooling, so is learning. School is optional, learning is not. And you can help them learn. So absolutely. So Cara, at this point, have you heard, seen, felt anything that you'd like to add for the mums here and the mums that are listening? Thanks for joining us if you've missed us live.
Yeah, so I'll just add just a couple of points I just thought about while Lucy was speaking, and probably the most influential one that we had was early on when we were discussing with somebody that we knew. We'd already just decided that we were going to home educate, and they turned around to us and said, it won't work. And for me, that was, I think, a driving force to be more so, well, it will work and we'll show you, in a positive way. People react differently, but I would suggest for people, when you get those comments, some of them you might just get, really supportive, but a lot of the comments come from a lot of misunderstanding and myths about what homeschooling actually is. It's more education at home than schooling at home. And so, yeah, that was sort of way back 2014. And my daughter last year, when she was 15, enrolled in a university subject, just one subject, and got a credit overall. And she has had learning issues previously. So, she was emotional. She was put at that level of going up against adults, either adults who had already studied or other people, people who've done HSC or SACE or whichever, your final years of, say, year 11 or 12. She didn't do any of that. She just skipped all that and went straight in and just did a university subject. So, yeah, there's lots of different, different avenues to move sort of more that way in the long run in the future. But for me, I just sat back and went, okay, I've done it. It's good, So, and there's lots of those sort of stories as well, because sometimes you do have that thing where you sort of think, am I doing the right thing for my child? Is this going to work? You do have days that are difficult and that you don't want to do homeschooling sometimes. But at the end of it, when you see your child read when they thought they never would, that's what counts. Sorry. Yeah. Over and done. Yeah.
Over for the moment, but not done, Cara. Thank you for sharing. You've got me emotional. We've all got stories like that, and you will. And I think some of if there is any opposition, I find if I look after their hearts as well, that people that are saying that, because by default and us doing this and having our families thrive, we welcome, and they can or they can't, they do or they don't, or they can or they won't, actually try on themselves, well, what am I doing with my children? Do I even know them and things? So some people don't want to know, as you said, throughout the process, you ask, am I doing the right thing? Well, say our family was interviewed our second year in. So in 2015, we started about this, or actually late in the first year, we started around the same time as Cara. I took my boys out at 8 and 11. It was meant to be temporary. It was meant to be for 7 months. Within 2 weeks, we loved it and we're still here. But we were interviewed by ABC television. They came and did a story on our family, and but you know, she asked me something like, well, actually, I don't know the question anymore, but the answer was, you know, I could have my kids in school and wonder if I'm doing the right thing. And I could be homeschooling and wonder if I'm doing the right thing. I could have stressful moments within the family and in the context of education and learning of my child when they're at school, or I could choose to have them at home. But I know where I would want to be more influenced, you know, that's where I can influence more when we're at home and I've got my babies here, and go from there. So 11-year-old came out because he wasn't writing, and that didn't make sense to me because he can write. So I'm going, well, why isn't he writing? Because he can, and he's dictating to the teacher. And they said, you know, he can use the computer, or he can, you know, dictate to the teacher. And the 8-year-old, I just kept getting told, even though he was A+ in maths, in other subjects, he just was not focusing. So I started with the oil in their sock, you know, under their feet, and before they put the socks on, and the oil to focus them, and talks. Come on, you've got to focus in class. I'm going, what are you doing, Heidi? He was focusing, just not on what the teacher wanted him to focus on. He had his own mind on what he wanted to focus on. And the 11-year-old, I took him, he's on the ASD, and I took him out a week earlier, which meant that for the 8-year-old, nap plan was actually happening at school. And I spoke to the teacher about that, and she said, well, if he's not stressed by it, he can do it. If he is stressed by it, we can sit him in the library, because it was important for me to bring my oldest home a week earlier. And so the first week I said, you know, come on, it's time to write a story at this stage. Come on, it's time to, you know, see what you can write. So I wouldn't even ask the question that way now, maybe. But anyway, I just said, it's time to write a story. And he started drawing. And I said, what are you doing, mate? And he said, Mum, I can't write a story unless I've met the characters. So you only get 40 minutes. He was preparing for grade 7 NAPLAN, first term, grade 6. And he wasn't given the time to actually draw a picture. That was his way of learning before he wrote the story. That's the sort of things that you will have, that you'll be able to discover about your own children. So yeah, and Josh, the youngest, wasn't stressed at all. He did NAPLAN, came home a week later. So, and I'll share next what happened, you know, when we had them home together, and how did that happen that we even fell in love with homeschooling when it was meant to be temporary. So we actually said to the school, I just want to get his confidence up, get him writing, get him ready for grade 7, you know, and we'll be back. Private school, you know, uniform, tie, socks, you know, I went to private school, so I had all of this stuff going on. It was a great school. Friends right from prep. Yeah, this is what we're doing. So yeah, so I said, we're coming back. Within those 2 weeks, I sent that email similar to what Amanda said before, and said, we're not coming back. We're not coming back. We love this. I know my kids now, so the rest is history. The eldest now, I couldn't keep him on any sort of curriculum, even self-directed. Well, I was going to say even self-directed. His self-directed was all music, and he is now at the Music Industry College at 17, and potentially going on to JMC and another to doing the Bachelor next year. The youngest is in a sort of a hub similar to a dojo, what Changemaker Teens, helping people getting set up to these little learning dojos. He's in one of those 3 days a week. He started 1 day a week, then he wanted to go 3. Now he's chosen himself to do 2 because he's found more of his passions. And he said, Mum, I want to self-organize my time now. I don't have time to go there 3 days a week. I want to do it more at home. So I'm speaking very fast here, but, you know, the 4 of us here, seasoned homeschoolers, and there might be others here online just curious on how they may be able to help out in the future too. So, yeah, we've all got stories, and you'll have your own and create your own as well. So step 2, we're getting out of school. We've got some vision. You've got some hope that it does all work out, yet there's tricky times. So that's a great pathway to start on. Sarah, just a nod or a thumbs up. Are we on par answering some of the questions that you've been seeing? Are we going okay? All right, thank you. All right. Amanda, next step. Now we've got them out of school. We've got Queensland, New South Wales here. We do have at the Educating Parent, Lucy's put in that Facebook group, recommend absolutely joining that group. Actually, Amanda, again, if you can explain that group on why, even when you're thinking about homeschooling, you can get onto that site, the Educating Parent site. Because some of the, even though community is great and socialization is definitely a thing, and it has been for all, when I say a thing, a great thing, it's existed. I remember my boys saying once, "Mom, it's homeschool. Can we stay at home, please?"
We've had that chat too.
And we've got way more friends than we ever would have had at school, and the mummy friends are just amazing. Like, heart, love them, whether you see them once a week or once a month, or after lockdown. So yeah, love you all. And look at that, within 2 days I've got people here, and they're a bit more time, we could have had more too. So Amanda, next step.
So in terms of this online community, so homeschoolers, I know that there's people listening who this idea is very, very new to, but just so you all know, homeschooling's been around for a long time. We have community networks set up. We have co-ops, we have park plays, we have Facebook is the big communicator for homeschooling. And basically you can probably type your suburb in and up will pop a local homeschooling group. So you can type in your suburb or the ones nearby and it will come up. The thing about it is you need to understand that if you're still thinking about homeschooling, then the Educating Parent group that we linked in the chat is the one to join. Once you've actually decided and made that first step and gone, okay, your school's got the email already that says we're not coming back, then you can join a bunch of other groups. But you actually just can't get in them until you're actually homeschooling, because the questions that you need answered, you're not going to find the answers to in there anyway. So the first place to go is the Educating Parent group and their website. And there is a lot of information in there on what to do first. It answers the beginner questions, and we can alleviate all those fears that you have at the moment so that you can take that next step with confidence. There are other groups, there's Homeschooling Australia, there's your local suburb one, and all of them require that you're already homeschooling. But just know there is a big community out there waiting for you. There is a lot of people willing to help and support you. There's lots of volunteers who'll help you get your plan together. There's lots of groups that you can send your children to, or that you can go with them. You'll be able to find local homeschoolers with similar age children in your area. If you're prepared to put in a little bit of time and effort digging around to find them, then they'll come, and it won't be too hard for you to find. Socialization is always the biggest question when we first start homeschooling, and I can assure you we have no problems with socialization unless we're in lockdown, in which case we all suffer just as much as everyone else does. But in terms of socialization, my children have we actually have an extra kid here today. She's here for the whole day to learn. On Thursdays I have 9 kids here learning, and on Wednesdays we actually go to another co-op which has 120 or so kids in it, so where we do team sports and athletics carnivals and all of those other things that you are worried that your kids are going to miss out on. So the socialization is not an issue. There are groups there, and if you can't find what you want, then create it. I couldn't find someone to teach my kids certain subjects, so I just hired someone and got a class together, and now they do it with other children. When we first started homeschooling, my children and I absolutely hated the first 3 months. I'm the first one to say it was awful. It was dreadful. None of us liked it. And then we sat down and said, okay, why not? What's wrong? What's not working? And they all said, we miss group learning. So my kids actually enjoyed school. They were ducks. They were A+ students. They loved it. They had heaps of friends, and they actually missed learning in a group. So we just joined a co-op, and now they learn in a group each week, and they're home for the rest of the week doing their own bits and pieces, and they love it. So socialization isn't really a problem, even though it seems like a really big mountain to climb when you first start. Some of my children still have contact with their school friends. Some of them don't talk to any of their school friends anymore. We've been doing this for over 5 years. They've had friends for the entire homeschool journey. And one of my daughter's spending the weekend with someone she went to prep with. So, and she's about to turn 18. So they still have long-term friendships. You can maintain those friendships. It just takes a little bit of effort on our part as parents, because they're not just going to see these kids every day at school. We have to actually make an effort to organise those catch-ups. And that's probably the biggest change in terms of socialisation, is how socialised your kids are is actually up to you. So, but yeah. All right, Heidi, back to you.
Thank you, Amanda. So you've heard little bits of our story, and we've spoken about and probably given hope with some of the that our children have grown up in this. Lucy's still got a young, I think one younger one, or a couple, two younger ones. And then they were even younger, maybe even if you've got primary schoolers or anyone listening here, if they are quite young, she's obviously brought them through that. So we might be saying things about the teenage years or so and socialization, but it starts with the younger ones. The other thing I'll say on that, and I do see sometimes on pages, is my child is shy. So this is great, this socialization, and yes, we need to get out there. I want to create friends for them. I want them to have friends, but where do we start with that? And again, it's just putting out that question, my child is interested in this. Anybody who has a child like this, and go, somebody goes, yes, my child is shy too, and yes, they love that as well. Let's meet online. And and online's not such a bad thing when you meet in a game or something, because it gives that common denominator of what they're talking about. And then that goes on to many other things. So whatever brings them together in the first place, then that's fine. We went to an event once where the youngest one was horse riding. The eldest one came along. I wasn't going to leave him at home at that stage. He came along, and there were kids the same age, and they were all sort of separate because they were all in their sort of own little bubbles and own shy or whatever. And then and then we actually didn't ever use the word shy. It was just they're checking out. Like, we never actually labeled the child as shy. They just said they're just getting to know what's happening here and then move in. Even when they were at school, he would look, turn up to a birthday party, stay on the outside and then come in. So there was a ball there, and other mums were saying, go play with the ball, go kick the ball around or whatever. In the end, it was an iPad. It did bring them together. They sat on a fence. They looked at something for like about 10, 15 minutes. Then they put that down. Then they were kicking the ball. It's in their time. And whatever brings them together, whatever brings them, just like we need to know, like, and trust each other, so do kids. And whatever brings them together. So even if there's, shy ones, we might call shy right now, or a bit more reserved or anxious or whatever, there is the support network. Just walk where your feet are, and one step. Virginia's just put a question out there. Okay, Lucy, it's over to you. I would love to know from Lucy about how she deals with her ODD kid. My 12-year-old has ODD and never taken kindly to any input to his learning from me. That's about to change. I also worry about if we do unschooling and his obsession with gaming will be more out of control. Understand, we hear that a lot as well. So good. How do you all deal with boundaries around online gaming? So it's 1:35 now. How long do we have? We will start and touch on that now, and maybe point you into an area where they can get more information as well. I will put up also a link to a homeschool summit that Lucy, Amanda and I spoke at this year, and I believe somebody addressed this topic as well. So I'll actually, I think my pal, if she's still there, she'll put up that link. There it is there. So that's of the summit that we spoke at this earlier this year. So there's more information on there. But Lucy, chat away, love.
Yeah, great question, Virginia. And it's obviously going to be different for your child, son or daughter, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure whether or not you are medicating that particular child or not. Meds for us, and I know it's a very controversial thing, but I can't talk about this, like the way that we actually did homeschool this particular child without mentioning meds, because it was a tool in our toolbox. So we use lots of tools in our toolbox. One of them was homeschooling. One of them was the flexibility around identifying the ways in which he learned. So he is absolutely dead set on becoming the second registered or authorized what's it called? Certified builder. What is it called, Ethan? Certified Lego master builder in the Southern Hemisphere or something, right? So he's had this vision since he was about 3 or 4. He's wanted to be, like, we have an entire dedicated Lego room. So it's not just a little hobby for him. This is something that we, you know, he invests time and money and energy into. And instead of allowing that to be well, you just do that in your spare time, it was, how do we incorporate that passion that you have into your everyday learning? So we are eclectic learners, which means we kind of have a bent towards unschooling and natural learning, I guess, hands-on stuff around what their interests are. But I also do introduce some of, you know, the things that I would like them to cover as well that maybe they wouldn't necessarily ask about. And so if we were covering, for instance, there was a story at one point about some coal seam gas or something, and I just said, let's kind of read a little bit about this, and then I asked them to kind of in their own words describe back to me what they had heard. We call that narration. You know, they're just telling me back in their own words some of that information. Well, he said to me, I don't really want to tell you, can I just show you? And so he went out to the Lego room and he built this amazing little like model that had, you know, bits, I mean, he was like 12 or something, and it had all these engineering things, and he's so normally oppositional to anything that I suggest, and yet here he is embracing what we've learned. He's showing me that he's actually retained information and he's doing it in his own way. Now, those are the sorts of things I call springboarding. We springboard off their interests. So identifying those interests and passions that our children have, and not just saying, well, that's just a great little hobby. I use that every single day to then go, how can, if that's what you love, how can I then incorporate writing and maths and science and history and English and anything that we want them to cover, any skills that I want them to cover. And essentially with unschooling anyway, they're going to cover those things because you're allowing them the time and space to really have a go at that. And even one of my other sons, you know, he's not, he doesn't have ODD, but I was very initially like, oh, gaming, you want to do gaming computers? Like, mate, that's kind of a secondary thing. Like, we do that in our spare time. And eventually I just kept thinking, why does this kid not really show any passion? And it was because we were squashing it. We were basically saying to him, we don't see that as being valuable. He's now studying at 16. He's also done, like Kara's daughter, he's done 2 uni subjects, passed them both, didn't take his fancy at 15. So he went into IT support. He's nearly finished his certificate 3 through TAFE in IT support at 16, built his own gaming computers, and is going to be, well, has been kind of prepped up for a little job here in our local council for a traineeship in IT support. So, you know, it's just incredible if we allow them to have this time and space to really engage with their interests. I actually think, and it's not to say that the ODD vanishes, but it's just a lot more manageable. So that's for us how it has helped our son. As I say, I have to be transparent. He is still oppositional and he is still medicated. Even in his job, he recognises that he needs that. Even at nearly 18, he actually has to have, you know, he has to have those conversations with his bosses, and they've been incredibly you know, fantastic about it. So I'll just say that about the ODD side of things. In terms of gaming, I might throw it over to somebody else, but for us, even with our young kids, we do have kids with very, let's just say, we notice that they're quite obsessive with things, and they notice that about themselves. So we do have boundaries that we put in place. That works for our family, but essentially you've got to do what is right for your family and what works for your particular children. So Heidi, over to you, and maybe over to somebody else about that one.
This side. All right, thank you, Lucy. That's terrific. Virginia, recording. Sorry, Virginia, sweetheart. Forgive me, please. Can you? How did that go? Did Lucy hit some nuggets for you? So just put your comment there. Want to expand on anything? And in the meantime, whilst you do that, Amanda, there's a question on curriculum. So Lucy's shared some of this project-based, passion-based, following that of the child, more natural learning, self-directed. We've been a little bit of both, solid with a distant ed school, and then moved to self-directed learning and more natural learning as they moved into their teenage years as well. So we had that grounding. So what's your comment on the curriculum we follow, please?
Okay, so this is one of those questions that's going to be very different in every single family. But I can give you what we do here and give you an idea of the reasons behind that. But I think people need to assess their own reasons and think big picture. What do you want your perfect school to look like? And I always say to people when they first start, take a really big piece of paper, put it on the kitchen table, and I'm talking really big, table size. Give your kids markers and get them to write down what they want their perfect school to look like, what they want to learn, what they're interested in doing, what they want you to consider as part of their school day. And if they all have a go at that and you fill that paper up, then you've got somewhere to start. And there might be no curriculum on that at all. But when you look at that, you can still see that you can fit all that stuff into your day. I'm a teacher. I have an early years degree, and ironically, I teach high school science. I don't know how that happened. It just did. But because I have a teaching degree, I do understand that how the school system works, and I understand where curriculum can fit in, and I also kind of understand where curriculum overrates itself as well. So in my family, I have academic kids. I've got two of my girls went to uni very early. They were 13 when they started. I've got a 17-year-old who's in second year of her degree now. I've got a 15-year-old who's doing a diploma. So we're a pretty academic family in general. So we do actually use curriculum. I expect my children to do their maths every day that we are home. So I consider it, if we're home, it's a homeschool day. If we're out, it just didn't happen. Not a big deal. Generally speaking, we're aiming for 4 or 5 days of maths a week because they're in high school and they're quite academically advanced. Maths it needs to be done regularly. Otherwise you have to spend 3 hours on it at a time, and nobody likes maths that much. So we do that. In terms of English, I pick and choose from a bunch of different curriculums, and we do that a couple of times a week. I pull from curriculums for the classes that my children join, which quite often I'm the teacher for, but the maths is actually the only one that we do every day religiously. And the only reason I do that every day religiously is because I've looked around outside of our family, and the only children who I'm seeing who are actually getting to the level that my children are aiming at are the children who are religiously sitting down and doing a little bit of maths every day. And because maths is a prerequisite for all the subjects, they've chosen to do long-term in their careers. I've got one aiming for veterinary, one who wants to be a teacher, and one who wants to be a builder and an engineer. So they all need quite a lot of maths. So that's the subject that we use curriculum for, and we just get done every day. Everything else we're very flexible for. I will pull curriculum. If my kids go, I want to learn about physics, I'll go and find a physics curriculum and that suits them. Something very hands-on that also has the academic for it, because we like hands-on stuff, and we'll do that. But my children spend probably maybe 2 to 4 hours a day max doing curriculum schooling, and the rest of their time they spend following their own interests. I do consider their university and their diploma stuff following their own interests because they chose to enroll in those things. I didn't do it for them as such. They decided that's what they wanted to do. They chase that goal, so that's considered their own interests. If they're struggling to keep up with that, then I'm happy for them to drop all their homeschool subjects, because obviously they're working at a level beyond year 12 there anyway. But generally speaking, they do part-time of that, and then they continue with their homeschool work until they get to a grade 12 level, and then they graduate. Homeschoolers generally graduate early. They don't usually go all the way through to the end of year 12. Usually they know what they want in life sooner, and they just chase those dreams down, and there's no stopping them. Whether we wanted to or not, they're taking that next step with or without us there. They definitely have drive. They usually learn how to direct their own education. I very, very rarely have to do anything. I do sit with my son each day. I have a dyslexic boy. I sit with him and do spelling. That takes 10 minutes a day. Other than that, I'm not needed. Mine are teenagers now. I'm not needed at all, other than if I'm teaching a class full of children who've come here to learn something specific from me. When they were younger, I did have to spend more time with them, but I'm talking 2 hours and you've got a whole school day covered easily. So, yeah, so we pick and choose from curriculum. Not everyone uses curriculum at all. We just happen to be a family that does. And like Heidi said, some people sign up for distance education. Some people sign up for complete packages. UCA is an option that you can have a look at if you're looking for a complete package just to get started on. Some people like the it's like having UCA, EUKA. I can see someone's commented on that. It's just tick the box, buy the whole thing, go home, do it with your family. I don't recommend you buy a whole year at once. You probably won't continue to use it. You'll find your feet after the first few months, and then you'll probably relax and add in more and more things for yourself. So there you go, Heidi.
Oh, I didn't realise that I was unmuted at that time. So sorry if you heard ticks of my computer. So, okay. So Amanda, that was good. Just from building the bridge, again, from school, the language of curriculum, some mums may only know that they are given maths and English, and, you know, somewhere there's this government site that says what they have to learn. So just building the bridge from what that curriculum context or word meant at school versus now. Can you just tie the bow there, please, Amanda?
Yes. So this does vary a little bit per states. In some states, you are actually required to choose an education that meets the Australian national curriculum or your state's curriculum. If you're in Queensland, you're lucky, we can ignore it completely. The word curriculum in general just sort of means, you know, the books your kids fill out at school. You know, they have a maths book that they fill out. That's a book that has lessons in it that has been developed from looking at the Australian national curriculum. So they took the ideas that they want every kid in this country to learn, and they put it into a book. And then you work through the book. At school, it's very step by step. You open it, you do the page, you move to the next page. When you're homeschooling, curriculum's much more a broader topic, and it can literally mean it's a much wider field. It doesn't necessarily have to be a book. You might build a curriculum for history that's based around Lego and documentaries. But I think that probably answers the question in terms of making that link between school and home. At school, it's usually going to be a textbook of some sort. At home, it very rarely is.
Yeah. And if you choose to, we started by finishing some of the textbooks that we got from school. So
yes, if you've got nowhere to start, if you don't know where to start, you'll ask your teacher to send home the books the kids are already working with at school, and just work through a couple of pages of the maths book and a page in the English book and a page in the science book each day until you find a better alternative. Or if your kid enjoys that, you can just keep doing that, just by the next level up when it's full. And then you're covering everything. So nice and simple.
Yeah, perfect. So and then where they might need to do every question in class and then finish it at home, when you start seeing them getting them correct, you might want to stop that and go on to something else. So once they've got the concept, just move on. And that's what you can do homeschooling wise too. You just move at the pace of the child, or if they're finding that challenging, you can stay with that for a while. Okay, so Cara, have you got anything to mention on curriculum for New South Wales?
So with the curriculum for New South Wales, it does have to align with the New South Wales curriculum. There is a Australian curriculum which embodies the whole of Australia, but to put your program together, which there's a lot of help out there. And so that can be not as daunting as what it seems at the moment, because it's a lot of different terminology that you're not used to at the moment. But it does need to match the New South Wales curriculum itself. But there's so many ways of doing that. And just an example, you're going to the shops, you're, you know, let's just say we're not in lockdown and, you know, a regular circumstance. You go to the shop, you decide that you're going to give your child, say, $20, and they need to come up with a meal for that, which is what we've done quite a lot of. So then they buy the ingredients to make the meal. They have to budget. So if there's enough money left over, they can buy something that we can have for dessert. And then they come home and make it, and depending on the age of the child and whether they need help or anything as well. And so with that, you've covered English, they read the labels, they read the packages. You've covered maths, which is, you know, your decimals with, you know, money and adding money together, times thing. Okay, we've got 4 people in the family and we need, you know, something, we need 200 grams, but the packet that we want to buy will only give us 100 grams. So how many packets do we need then? So then that's 2 packets, and those sorts of aspects. Getting your change back covers another point of curriculum in maths. Communicating with the lady in the checkout, or you know, asking where is a product in the store. That's all sort of intertwined. So before you've even known it, without touching any paperwork itself, you've just ticked off. I could probably easily link 20 outcomes or 20 parts of a syllabus which could be covered without picking up a pencil. So that's quite relieving. And I do a lot of that. I sort of have linked quite a lot of everyday events to the curriculum. And so when you start to see that as well, that's also relieving in itself. But with the curriculum more so, yeah, you can either use books, you can pay for the books, there's free download books that you can get online. There's free places like Khan Academy, although that's more tiered towards America, but you can use that as well. It's just sort of, if you were doing something like history, then in the younger years, you need to cover Australian history. So Khan Academy wouldn't go into that. So then you just supplement that with going online and looking at some Australian history content as well. So that's me done for that topic.
Thank you, Cara. I mean, some of you may have a question mark above your head. Then, you know, Lucy's in New South Wales and she's following more natural self-directed learning, and, you know, you're looking at, well, kind of you are too, Cara, you know, the life skills and that, and then matching it to the curriculum. So there is help to do that. We did a little bit of that, and then our distant ed teacher, we were very lucky with our distant ed teacher that we could just show this is what we've done, and he or she, you know, marked it to the curriculum, and he or she did the report for me and for us. So whereas with home education unit in Australia and the equivalent in New South Wales, you need to do that yourself. But there's plenty of support out there. Amanda helps people with plans as well, and getting the registration paperwork in. She's actually got a team of people. If she gets overloaded, we can send it to other people as well. But yeah, she's very good at helping you with that. And there would be equivalent. Do you do that too, Cara or Lucy? So do you actually write plans? And when we say write plans from a legal perspective, she can't write the plan for your family. It's all based on interviews with your family, who your kids are, understanding that. And she's got this gift to actually hear you, download your brain on a piece of paper, then you check, and you can make it your own. So absolutely, she doesn't have you know, a whole bottom drawer full of plans going, tell me about your kid. Yeah, that will help, you know.
Well, I do, but I'm not using them. I've done a lot of plans. There's more than a bottom drawer full.
Okay, so there's support out there, and I love that Amanda told me the other day that, and reminded me, I knew this, but she reminded me that it's not about dependency. She'll actually just hold your hand and do this for a while until you've got it. Until you've got it and you can fly. And I love that as a coach, because it's about supporting you, holding your hand, going, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, until you're off, riding that bike of homeschool on your own. So so the support is there as long as and as deep as wide as you want. And if you're not getting the answer, you haven't asked the right question. And that's fine. You can even personal message any of us if you don't want anything, out there in the big wide world as well. So we'll be probably doing Changemaker teams, and we help the mums of the youngsters as well. So we mainly help and hold the space for the mums in the communication with the child when things go awry. So we are going to be hosting more of these question and answers, most likely on a Monday, a bit earlier in the day, and we'll always have the recordings. And even if no one shows up, you can put your questions in, and I'm going to have a lovely hat here, pull a question out of a hat and say those, answers to that. So I love speaking more than writing. Amanda's quick and right. Lucy provides the blogs. At Changemaker Teams, we have blogs and podcasts and things as well. However, I much prefer connect with the real person. So if that's via a question, I'm happy to do that, or a discovery call. So we'll put up a link for a discovery call with myself as well. So, and then I can, again, I can't help you. What we do can't help you, but Cara can, Amanda can, Louise can, Bev can, Patricia can, the whole network. That's why Sarah from the Hockley family over there, she phoned me on Saturday to say, you're well connected, Hides. You can help the community. So that's my aim, my purpose, my passion, and this can lead us to the next session as well. My absolute passion and legacy, and I might get emotional here, that I want to leave is that changing the homeschool landscape, or evolution, not change, it's an evolution of education, that homeschool families can learn and earn. So that's the next question we're hearing a lot. How do I keep an income going? Learn and earn with ease and joy. It doesn't have to be a struggle. And that's my German grandmother always said, immer geradeaus and immer mit der Ruhe. And that basically means always move forward and always with peace. And Changemaker Teens has put that forward. We basically say onwards with ease, guys, onwards with ease. Walk where your feet are, onwards with ease. And you can all have that. Put that in your pocket, onwards with ease. I think Amanda says just stay in the moment. Lucy's much the same, and Cara's much as just breathe and live in the moment. So, okay, so the somebody has to go as well. Oh, no. So if anyone's feeling anything like the negative or the stressed or scared or whatever, you've got a choice to make a decision. It's a decision point. It is a decision. And one thing I will say our responsibility is to teach our children. We always say take responsibility, and more people in society and community will need to take responsibility and teach our kids responsibility. Well, another way of wording that, and what my 13-year-old, when he was 13, he's 14 now, but when he was 13, I got off a similar Zoom, a Zoom that I went on. I'm constantly keeping updated as well. And the person on the dad on the phone, it was a dad taking that Zoom call, and he said, our responsibility is to teach our children that they know their choices, their decisions create their freedom. And isn't that what it's all about? Their choices. So timely to hear that. Their choices, their decisions create their freedom. And mums, be the change. Your choices, your decisions create yours and your family's freedom. If you're scared, if you're stressed, that feels 180 degrees opposite to freedom for me. All right. So I use this coaching thing, a coaching question. If stress, scared, whatever negative you're feeling is on a coin on your hand, throw it up in the air. What's your direct opposite? What's your opposite? Is it peace? Is it calm? Is it joy? Is it relief? What is it for you? and then just decide to do more things that will give you that. Being on this Zoom call, you've done it, you're doing it, listening, it will give you some relief. It's given you some relief. So whatever that word is. So great. So yeah, so we don't need to be scared in high school. Another gift Amanda has, and I've done it just by listening to my child as well, but know that there's support there too, is when I said at 14, when my oldest was 14, he just taught himself every musical instrument he possibly could. You know, he was a drummer, had gone interstate as a homeschooler, interstate doing drum band, you know, band slam championships and all sorts of things. And then he started teaching him all this music. So the maths, the English, everything was gradually going out the window. And I said, that's fine, love. That's great. But it's got to mean something. If you've got these gifts, it needs to come out into the planet. It needs to be given to the world. It needs to support others and support you. What's next? And so we've always done business courses as we've gone, and he found through one of the business courses, he got an opportunity to know about Certificate 3 in music. He researched that himself, found that he could do that at TAFE. We got risk assessed because he was like 15 in a few days when he started that. And then from that, he did a little bit of screen and media as well, and now is at the Music Industry College and on. And Amanda knows, our little man, one can use his name, you know, right from the beginning, how, yeah.
He has come so far. There is no other way to describe it. He has come such a long way, and he's following his passions. And I can't possibly imagine how he would have got to the place he's at now had he stayed in school.
No way.
Yeah.
Absolutely no way. Thank you. Thank you. So
those of you who are here freaking out about high school, please don't. It's I promise you, my children know so much more about so many topics than I do, and it's never been a problem. My 13-year-old boy is my youngest. He takes his Nerf guns apart, puts them back together, and then rebuilds something completely different that fires by a remote control. There's no way I could do any of that. It's not a problem. If he can't find the answer how to do it, he'll Google it and he'll figure it out, and he'll go and create the part he needs, and he'll ring me and he'll say, hey, on your way home, can you go to JCar and get me this, this, and this? And he'll write it down in texts, and I'll just show it to the guy behind the counter, and I got no idea what he wants. Can I have these? And then I'll just bring it home and he'll complete whatever project he's working on. Both my girls started uni at 13. At 13, there is no way I could have done that. But for them, that was a natural progression in the areas that I could no longer teach them. So one did environmental biology for her first unit because I taught her everything I knew on the topic. I couldn't find any more information anywhere that was deeper. The natural progression was that she then go to university, which is what we all do when we run out of things that we can self-teach. If we want more, we take the next step. My other daughter decided to do creative writing as her first university subject, and oh my goodness, she worked her butt off, but she loved it. She loved every minute of it, and she didn't have any problems getting through the material because that was the level that she was working at in that subject. There's no way at 13 she would have been able to go to uni and do calculus because that's not her passion area. However, she'll get there in time. And I'm not teaching my children calculus. I've bought a curriculum that teaches directly to the child because I have zero interest in learning calculus at all, let alone again. So I'm not doing that. And that's okay. We facilitate their learning and we direct them towards good resources. We don't necessarily have to sit there and teach them. And when my kids get stuck in their maths, I call a tutor to help. You know, we've had a tutor on call for a couple of years. It's like, okay, I've got a kid who's stuck with this. Can you help them out? And we probably see them maybe 4 times a year, and I've got 3 kids. The kids figure it out. They can go online. They can look it up. They learn how to teach themselves. So high school is actually easier because you can kind of just leave it to them a bit more. In the younger years, as a homeschool mum, you're a bit more hands-on. You have to be there a bit more. You've got to direct them a little bit. You've got to make sure they're not going to blow the house up. If their physics experiments go bad, you've got to deal with that. You have to kiss the boo-boos and all the stuff that you do as mums when they're teens. You just have to make time for conversations, and that's not so hard. They really just need time to reconnect with you and talk to you about what they're learning, so that you can go, oh, hang on a minute, I heard about this great resource. Let's go find that and put it in front of them, and then they'll make the most of it. So I promise you, high school's easier. It's less work for us.
Yeah. If I can just add to that. So yeah, like, as Amanda was saying, just if you teach them how to research and how to find good quality resources, then they will be able to learn for life independently by themselves. And the other aspect is, which I had in my head, it's sort of just gone, is, where's it gone? Yeah, they learn to be able to just do it, more so themselves. I did have something which I was going to say, but it's left me. I'll write it down if it comes back.
You know what it was, Cara? This is a great question you can use with your kids when they stop too. And my boys go, Mum. If you knew what it was, what would it be? If you knew what you wanted to say, what would it be? How can you share? Usually 30 seconds it comes back. So we'll come back to you.
Can I jump in and say, just on what Cara was saying, how we've always said for our kids, if we can teach them how to love learning, and if we can teach them how to learn. So I think that accessing all the information, they'll be able to, if they know how to use alphabetical indexing, if they know how to make a distinction between a bias, and we're reading things, and even from the youngest of ages, we're talking about stuff, and we'll go, oh, and the 9-year-old here just goes, that's propaganda. And we go, wow, okay, you know the difference between propaganda, because we just have those conversations. And I should say that although I did give that example about Lego, we actually are a family also that does curriculum at different times. And again, what Amanda and Cara were saying about the facilitating learning, accessing that different information, for us, it's taken time, but we've gone, okay, maths, we do need, this particular curriculum, and we do it this many days. We take time where we don't do any spelling at all, and we just do natural stuff of letter writing and emails, and then we'll go through phases where the kids will go, I really need spelling lists every single day at the moment, and we're like, yep, cool, so spelling lists right now are like back on for our kids. And so we're like right in the throes of, they'll go, I want a spelling bee, can you do times table quizzes? And so it's all about really understanding your kids and how they learn, but also going, what are our non-negotiables? Okay, well, like Amanda was saying before, if your kids are showing interest in going to university, you're not just going to go, yeah, just play Minecraft for 8 hours. That should get you in. I mean, maybe it will. Awesome if it does. But I'm not comfortable with that. I need to be able to know that I've actually given my kids access to information and to experiences that I feel like will help them to know how to learn and how to love learning. And so last week, my 9 and 12-year-old were dissecting sheep's brains, and we learned about the cerebellum and the cerebrum and the brainstem, and we made up a song about that. And, there's just all of that kind of fun stuff. It doesn't have to be dreary. It doesn't have to all be textbook. It doesn't have to all be like, they were like, ew, sheep's brains, that's gross. And we talked all about hygiene and cross-contamination. And, there's lots and lots of multiple layers of learning that you're constantly going through. So my number one thing to go back even a step is just to say, what is your vision? If you're starting at the very beginning, make yourself a vision board, or not even a board, like just get a sheet of paper, similar to what Amanda was saying. We call that the bucket list of activities that, you're kind of deschooling and you think, I don't know what I really want to learn. Just write everything down. But your vision, what do you really want to achieve with this? Like, why would you choose to homeschool? What do you really, like, it's something that you shouldn't kind of go into what I'm thinking without really having a deep sense of this is what we want to get out at the end of it. And it might not be that your kids want to go to university. I've got one who's gone through university, is a paid librarian in our library. She wanted to be a librarian when she was 7. She's now the second in charge in our local library. If we get to one of my other kids, for instance, he's never ever wanted to do any kind of tertiary education. However, every single week, all of my kids take a turn in cooking dinner. They can use a washing machine, they hang out clothes, they are the kind of kids that, you know, want to hang out at home, and they still have friends and whatnot, but they actually like us and we like them. You know, those are the things that were important to us, that we were actually building, that we were relationally based. And, you know, all these years on, we're still upholding those visions and not like just kind of hanging on to it. It's actually a really vibrant part of our life. And so that's the thing I always say to people, if they, you know, when they're having a consult or whatever, I say to them, just know why you're doing what you're doing. Just have a vision for what you're actually wanting to achieve through this. And it doesn't have to be academic, it may be, but it may be take into consideration character development, and, you know, things like you want your kids to be conscientious, you want them to have a good work ethic, you want them to you know, have integrity. Those are the sorts of things that every day when you're asking them, hey, can you please hang out that load of washing, like I said to my 16-year-old son today, and he just came up and he's like, yeah, no dramas. I was like, thanks mate, I appreciate that. He's like, that's all right. Like, that means a lot, you know. That's the kind of stuff that nobody really told me was going to be a byproduct of this. And I just go, but like, I'm fully, like, really chronically ill. I can't actually get out of bed a lot of the time. I have to be able to have a family that is able to function well on their own, and they can, and I didn't know I was going to need that. It's kind of like that added bonus that nobody told me about. So if you're worried about those sorts of things and you think, how are we going to survive? It really is, it's a matter of, again, like Amanda was saying, and Cara, I think too, and Heidi, how much you invest in is what you're going to really get out. And for me, there's like a million little moments along the time, you know, of homeschooling. I'm working on a book at the moment called A Million Little Moments, because I just think that it's not one big thing. It's all of these tiny little things that go along to create this kind of life that we want to carve out.
And I did remember what I was going to say before. So I'm not good at maths. It is not my strong point. I don't like it. I wouldn't consider my brain to be mathematically inclined. My level would probably be, I don't know, year 6 plus minus, that sort of stuff. I have done, having said that, I have done statistics at a university level, but that was, you know, like 2012. It'll come back to me, but I just don't like going there. It's not my favorite. So when my kids are doing maths, or when my kids have been doing like physics or chemistry or something else that, you know, a subject that you're not that familiar with, and you get stuck on a question, one, ask yourself, is it crucially important for the future? Like, you know, are they going to need it everyday life? Or is it going to contribute to their line of where they're going to be heading in the future? So if they need it from university or that type of thing. Otherwise, take a screenshot of the page, or take a screenshot of the, you know, whether you're using an online program or something, put it up in one of the homeschool groups. And as soon as you put it up in one of the homeschool groups, or join, you know, like a maths Facebook group, or you know, like if you're looking at some sort of sciences, you know, like a weather group or something like that, just take a photo, put it up, and just go, sorry guys, it's okay, can you just help me out with this? I don't really understand this. And it has helped me 100%.
And someone other than us will answer you.
Thank you you, Cara. Thank you, Lucy, on your shares there. We've got about 15 minutes to what we suggested this call will be. So we'll honour that, and this may be the first of many. The four of us have got way more examples and things to share, but it's actually less about us and more about you guys. But just know with working with studying, I'm just thinking amongst us here, with studying with single parents, whether that's because the partner works away or they're there some of the time, where you feel like you're a single parent, whether you're critically, you know, whether there's an illness going on full-time or part-time. We're just, you know, a sample of what's out there and what's possible. So we can share all of that, but that's not what we're about. But what I'm also hearing, yes, any other questions, but what I want to address is the question we've had is, Amanda said before that, you know, we've got allow time for conversation with teenagers, but making sure the house doesn't blow up when they're young. And how do we do all of that? We've all practiced that a little bit in lockdown, even if you're at school, in how much you work and your income look like when you're homeschooling. So it is possible, and yet your choices, your decisions create your freedom. You combine that with looking at what you wanted to create for your family on your piece of paper or your vision board, and work out what's important, what you value as a family. So there are ways of having an income along the way. My approach to it is, let's listen to what you're already doing. How can we monetize that, you know, from an entrepreneurial perspective? Can you work? There are mums that work 3 days a week. They just do 3 days a week, and then there's 4 days homeschooling, and then there's no such thing as the holidays, basically, because they just keep going, or they take holidays whenever they want to. When they feel like they need to stop, they stop. So support team is a big part of it. There'll be people out there that have no support team. Then how do I do it? It's all about the want, your decision, what you want to do, and aligning to it. So Lucy, beautiful musician, Amanda, tutor, help her in the community, and there's been other income things along the way there. Cara, I know, studying, and she's doing some work with emergency services as well. I'm a coach and got packages, and help set up dojos and learning centers and things as well. So we've got our thing. Some of them are homeschool related, and some of them are not. There's many parents. Like even one of our friends, Sigrid, she worked in a childcare centre in the mornings, so morning and afternoon care, and then she homeschooled her kids in between. Teaching languages. So if you've got something to teach, we can help you load it up to a platform as well. So, and you can get paid for that if there's something that you can actually teach. We need more things on the platform that we've got in this Australasian time zone, definitely. So if you want information on that, I can help you with that. Lucy, Amanda, Cara, on that topic of income, and we've only got about 10 minutes left, and we can continue this. All I'll say, it's doable if you want it to be doable. And, you know, you can lead a simple life or an abundant life. Well, all of it's abundant. A simple life is abundant as well. So, but from a financial perspective, yes, there are the bills to pay, and that's the question that I'm hearing as well. So how did we go about that? I didn't plan to homeschool 12 months beforehand. You guys obviously aren't as well. So there was no safety net. How did we do it? How did you ladies do it? What have you got to add on that? And remember, people listening as well, it's a bigger topic, and all of these topics can be as big as we want. And we will continue this if you want it. So, you know, pop in the chat if you want more. And yeah, so even if it's a recording, pop in the chat if you want more and your specific questions as well.
I'll jump in and just say, sorry, Heidi, did I cut you off then?
Yeah, finish.
We decided to move to a rural town when we'd sort of been about maybe 3 or 4 years into homeschooling, and we just wanted a different kind of lifestyle for our kids. our house is pretty much what you'd call falling down, and we love it. It's got a lot of character. But I will say, you know, it's actually given us a lot to be grateful for out here. We grow our own veggies and fruit trees and have chooks and whatnot. It's not for everybody. There are difficult things about being in the country, but one of the blessings is we are debt free. And so for us, you know, we do live according to our means, and so my husband works full time, but we had a shop at one point. I used to sell retro and vintage goods. Before I was very ill, I was gigging, and I, you know, released an EP and whatnot, and now I just do my membership through homeschooling. It really doesn't bring in, you know, it's more just to help people rather than actually bringing in any money. But we're not in that position where we actually really, you know, where I would say we're struggling, we're not well off, but we're very grateful for what we have, and that's enough for us. So I guess always it comes down to what you are willing to sacrifice and what also you're willing to, you know, what you want, like what you're going after. For us, again, coming down to that vision, thanks mate, getting tea brought to me by my son. You know, when it comes down to the vision, again, you know, we weren't about the things. We've never been about the things. And so if the things are important to you, or that really nice house is important to you, and you don't want to live in a ramshackle one like this, then, you know, then I guess you have to make other sacrifices, and perhaps that, you know, there's other things that you can do from home, and looking into that. But for us, again, comparing it all back to our vision, this actually fits in really well with it. So we've still got there's 7 of us that still live here, and it's a very small home, but we're constantly, you know, going through our things, just going, we don't need that, we can go without this. We, you know, we have to, we just have to, I guess, constantly be aware of it and just pare back what we need. Over to someone else.
I'll jump in. I've homeschooled from very high income to single parent pension over the last few years, and I have to say I don't actually think the income makes any difference in terms of whether or not, well, for a start, it makes no difference to the quality of education your kids receive. Money, that doesn't rely on money. But I think what it came down to in the end was just dedication to actually wanting to do it. You make a choice to homeschool, and then you just homeschool. And everything else just works out. It just falls into place because that's your priority. You've made homeschooling your priority. So the rest of it, it happens. I wouldn't say it was any harder or easier when we had high income or low income. Probably the only difference is some of the external classes. When our income was higher, I probably spent more money on external classes, whereas now if I want an external class, we kind of have to budget it here and there. I don't think that it's made any difference to my children, because if they decide they want to do something, they're going to find a way to do it. And our family will find a way to do it. So I think it pretty much in the end just came down to what your priorities are. In the homeschooling community, as a bigger picture, there are nearly everyone is single income. So whether or not that income's high or low is pretty much 50-50, just like in the rest of the world. You'll find there's a lot of very, very low income people who they can only afford to come to a park play here and there if they can afford to put fuel in the car. And then there's other people who are dropping money left, right and centre because their hubbies have got a business. There's a lot of self-employed homeschool families and very involved dads as well. You'll find those are around and they've got money and they're happy to, invite you along for this, that, and the next thing. It's very community minded. Money is not really going to determine where you fit in this community. It's not going to have any effect on whether or not you're included in activities or not included in activities. There's heaps of free stuff available, and we do tend to try and keep the prices for things as low as we can anyway. In terms of creating income for yourself, that's the same as anything else. If you want to be a stay-at-home mum for whatever reason, it's exactly the same philosophy as if you're homeschooling. If you need more money, then you've got to be creative and find a way to get that money into your house as you need it. And that might mean that you buddy up with someone else and go, hey, can you have the kids, you know, Monday, Tuesday, I'll have yours Wednesday, Thursday, so we can both do 2 days a week casual work, if that's what it takes to make it viable for you. You can build the community that you need, just like we did when our kids were little and we were staying at home. We didn't have enough money for them then. So there's a way.
I can jump in quickly. Just with one of the chats, I saw Michelle put up, it was very tricky homeschooling 3 little ones, or like schooling at home because of lockdown. It's very different when you start to understand the curriculum and, you know, perhaps looking at say the stage statements or outcomes, depending on what you have to look at in each individual state. You learn that schooling or learning happens at any time while the child is awake. So you can sort of move from that mentality of, oh, in order to get any learning done today, we have to fill out this paperwork or this math sheet or this English sheet. And you can move more towards, well, we've communicated today because we've had a discussion about what we would like to have to eat for lunch, and we've chosen different, you know, toppings for our sandwich or whatever the type of thing is. So then you can just tick off communication straight away. Or, you know, you've watched a documentary or you've had some hands-on play with Play-Doh. Like Play-Doh just covers everything. Lego covers everything. Minecraft covers everything. So there's lots of different ways to actually learn without it being as a formal context, which a lot of people who have had children in school, myself as well, it can be sort of a little bit hard to identify the learning that happens naturally all the time throughout the day. As soon as the child is awake, they're learning. So that can help relieve some of that aspect as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Cara. It's 2:27. So drive safely if you're picking up kids from school at the moment. You hopefully have got some exciting news for them, whatever you decide. The community's here. It will look, I think the summary is, it will be tricky, it will be messy at some points, but overriding all of that, there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of connection, and you can help the child connect to themselves and connect more to the sibling contact. Everything, there's more wins than not. Just with your language, there's no need to, there's no have to, you guys get to. Remember, coming right back to the beginning, Amanda said this is legal in Australia. So you don't have to do this, you don't need to do this. If you choose, you get to do this. So watch your language, pick you up on that, Lucy. That's unlike you. You had a lot of need to, have to's there. But I reckon for Lucy, that was, you have so much to give out. You just wanted to get it all out. And so that's it. So Lucy's amazing. She's on that homeschool summit as well. So's Amanda. Cara, I'm sure you'll be there on the next one if you choose, and we might even do a section on studying, how when you're studying and homeschooling as well, and you've got a lot of value to give there as well. There's 3 messages there. There's lots of thanks. It's been that's us in the past. Thanks everyone. Yes. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, Sheena and Justin, if you're there. I'm hoping overall you're feeling a lot more ease and joy. That's my intention. And know that you can learn and earn as you go. And yeah, we're here. The community is amazing. Love it. Rebecca, all these people showing up that I couldn't actually see on the screen. Hey, who's good at doing a screenshot? Any of you girls? Amanda or Lucy, can you... Or Sarah, you do the screenshot. We might need to do a few. And
I can't
then,
do it on the phone.
Because if there's more people on the line, sorry, you done a screenshot? So how many are online actually? There's 14 of us and I can't see that many. So I'm going to shut the chat down. Oh, it's my afternoon tea alarm.
There were 19 on at the height of the majority of everybody. We did have up to 19 on today. So,
okay. Oh well, hopefully we can see some more photos on the on the chat as well, because I don't know, I mean on the recording. Anyway, bless you all. 2:30 on the nose. Any other questions? Connect with Lucy, Cara, Amanda, or myself. Michelle, bless you. Sonia, everybody that I can't see on the screen, but there's some chats too. Bless you. Thank you for coming. And yeah, onwards with ease. Thank you. Bye, everyone.